What is up, everybody? Welcome into this edition of Warchant TV. I'm Aslan Hunjavandi, joined by founder and administrator of Warchant.com, Gene Williams, and managing editor, Ira Schoffel. Well, we are the ultimate Seminoles sports source. Promo code is actually a new one. It's FSU Spring 2021. That gets you 50% off an annual membership if you're a new subscriber, as well as a $25 e-card to garnet in gold. So no better time to join the ultimate Seminoles sports source. Thumbs up. You're watching us on YouTube. We're going to talk about the first day in pads, actions versus words. Ira Schoffel was out there in the flesh watching the practice 2 days from our managing editor. So, Ira, you saw the pads popping. Defense was flying around. That seems to be the theme that carried the day, but I don't want to put words in your mouth. What did you see out there?
Yeah, the defense definitely dominated the day, which I think you'd like to see. I mean, more often than not, that should be the story on college campuses around the country. Defenses usually should be ahead of offenses at this point. I think it's exacerbated right now for Florida State because you've got a situation where you've got such young wide receivers. There are so many freshmen and redshirt freshman wide receivers on that group against a very veteran secondary. And then on a day like today where situationally, not to make excuses for the offense, but situationally, they put them in a lot of third and long, fourth and long situations. It's just a recipe for disaster for this offense with young wide receivers. And then at quarterback, you still have young quarterbacks. Jordan Travis, I think, still looks, from what we've seen so far, to be the most comfortable. He's been in the system for a long time now. He started 4 or 5 games last year. So he seems the most confident. Mackenzie Milton's just still learning this offense. He's got all these young wide receivers, and this defense is kind of starting to really pin their ears back. And as today went on, they just kind of got some momentum. They started jawing, and then it was like a tidal wave. It was like watching the offense was just drowning as the practice went on there at the end, and they just couldn't get out of it. And it sounded like from listening to Mike Norvell after the practice, as you guys did as well, it sounded like that's what he wanted to see was more, at least some response from the offense, which they really didn't get.
Yeah, a lot of guys talking about momentum. You mentioned the first time after Thursday's practice, I think, Ira, the fact of the matter that what you saw kind of line up to what Mike Norvell shared with the media afterwards. He was giving a lot of compliments to some of the young guys and then also Jermaine Johnson as well. Was that one of the guys that flashed to you?
Yeah, he seems like he's at a different level than everybody else out there. I mean, it's it doesn't really matter who he goes up against. And today we were eager to see what he looked like in full pads as, offensive tackles could actually get a hold of him. The problem is they really never got a hold of him. I mean, he is coming so fast off the edge that he's really disruptive. And the whole defensive line, what was kind of interesting was watching the one-on-one battles. I thought the offensive linemen held their own in a lot of cases with the defensive line, particularly defensive end and offensive tackle. Other than Jermaine Johnson, I thought the tackles, Robert Scott, Darius Washington, did a nice job against, the McClendon and Josh Griffiths and some of those, Quayshawn Fuller for the most part, those defensive ends. But once they got into team, the pass rush just dominated. I think Corey was watching the inside running drills. I know, Gene, you helped him put up the updates, but it sounded like the defense kind of dominated that as well. And, I really think Jermaine Johnson, to me, just looks like he's at a different level. What will be interesting to see, and again, I feel like I'm making excuses for the offense. I'd like to see how they look when there's a question about what the play is going to be. Because a lot of the situational stuff we saw today was obvious passing downs. So they're pinning their ears back. And you take a guy like that's what he specializes in, is pinning his ears back. I want to see him in a full down and distance situation, more of a scrimmage type situation. But Corey said he looked really good in the inside drill as well, which is stuff in the run. So he looks like he's the real deal.
Well, yeah, Mike Norvell said he wanted to put the offense in stressful positions to see how they would react when things aren't going their way, and they did not respond the way he wanted to. But it's, again, just the first day in pads. Was there anything that Mike Norvell said that you found illuminating or maybe a little bit more interesting than the other, Gene?
He pointed out those right off the top. He mentioned the 2 freshman wide receivers. Burrell and McLean. So, you don't hear that very often. And for a unit that desperately needs some help, that could be good. So rarely do you see freshman wide receivers are able to contribute in year one. But, that unit we've talked about over and over, how much they've struggled. And maybe these guys have a real opportunity to contribute if they're making flashes this early in their careers. I think that's a real good sign. And you were out there, maybe you can talk about them a little bit more. But I like that I keep hearing those names when you're sending the updates to me and Corey is. their names keep coming up, and I'm like, well, that's interesting that these guys are making so many plays in these practices. So that stood out to me. He mentioned, obviously, Johnson. And I think so far of all the transfers, I think we can say, yeah, he's legit. He's going to be big time. He's going to help them out a lot. I did ask about the offensive line. I got kind of mixed reviews from you and Corey on the stuff I was hearing. Corey did make a comment to me about how the inside offensive line during some of those drills was blocking pretty well. Mm-hmm. And I asked Mike Norvell about that. He said you can tell they're physically better. You can say there's some mentalities different this year. So I do think the offensive line is making progress. Probably a little unfair right now going up when those tackles have to go against Johnson. But it sounds, talking to you, Ira, that for the most part, those guys are holding their own from everybody except for Johnson at this point.
I think so, especially at the tackle position. Inside, Fabian Lovett's had some really nice plays. I think Dennis Briggs has had some nice plays. You're seeing some Robert Cooper had some really nice plays. So I think that's a group, that defensive tackle group's playing well. But again, like in the individual stuff, I thought the offensive line held their own pretty well. Once they got in that team setting, it was like they just, as a team, they just couldn't get out of the quicksand. And so, they just, nobody stepped up and made a play. That's why I asked, Mackenzie Milton after the game, after the practice, what needs to happen in those situations? And he was saying, well, somebody needs to make a play. The problem is, I think the guys that probably can make that play are the running backs, but that wasn't the focus of what they were doing in that drill. It was the receivers, quarterbacks against the DBs in the pass rush. And so I really felt like a lot of people are going to overreact today, including us, into the defense is dominating. But I really felt like that was a tough situation that they put the offense in. Now, I'm sure they did it intentionally. I think they wanted to see how they did. And it was probably good for the defense. I mean, after the way they played for the last season or two, it's probably good for them to have a day like that. And you could tell, now Norvell talked about it a little bit, they liked the way the defense kind of celebrated for each other. I was watching towards after one of the interceptions. I think Brandon Moore, the UCF transfer, he's been playing well. He looked very impressive today. He made a play, and I was watching the guys on the sideline, and they were dancing and celebrating like it was a guy that they've known for 4 years or 3 years.
Don't say dancing, Ira.
Celebrating.
They were celebrating on the sideline. The guys who were not in the play were celebrating for him like it was somebody that they grew up with, and he's only been here for 2 months. So I think from that standpoint, I think that's good for the defense to just have that kind of spirit.
I'm curious because I was a little surprised, and you had mentioned that, and then he brought up the 3rd and 10 situation. To me, it's like, man, it's your first day in pads, and you're basically throwing them into the deep end, like right off the way. Let's go to put your backs against the wall and all that. I get that. I like that, but I'm also like, man, that's early. You just hope these guys, Milton and some of these guys to build some confidence. I'm kind of curious. I didn't get a whole lot out of Mike Norvell talking about quarterbacks today. I kind of wanted to get in there, and things got cut short. To me right now, it looks like Jordan Travis, at least when I'm getting your updates and yours and Corey's, it sounds like he's kind of been the most consistent of the guys right now. I guess, is that fair? And also, I know some people are going to probably overreact to Mackenzie Milton's not tearing it up right off the bat, but obviously he's had a lot thrown at him so far.
Yeah, and Corey's going to touch on it. His observations piece that's going up might be up on the site around the time that this gets posted. And then I'm also going to write a little bit more about it as well. But, I think it's probably to be expected, right? I mean, you guys probably, none of us expected that Jordan Travis was going to be behind after being here for over 2 years in this program, 1 year in this offense, started several games. It would be hard to imagine that he's going to be behind Mackenzie Milton already. So I think that's not surprising. What is a little surprising is Jordan looks really good, I think. Now, I don't know exactly what every read is. I can't tell you whether or not every pass is exactly where it's supposed to be, if it's back shoulder or front. We don't know all that, but he looks good. I mean, he looks very confident. He looks poised. He doesn't look, everything is a little disjointed when other guys are playing quarterback. When Jordan's in there, things seem to operate a little bit better. Now, again, I think to the point about Mackenzie, though, is, I mean, man, this guy has got so much on his plate. I mean, you think about for the last 4 or 5 years of his life, he's been the guy. He's been big man on campus. He knew that offense front and back. He won all those games, threw for all those yards. Even the last 2 years when he wasn't playing, he's still that guy on that campus. He was a hero. He comes here. He's learning a new system. He's still getting back to full strength with his body. He hasn't played in 2 years. He's got these young wide receivers who are getting manhandled. I mean, the story really so far has been these DBs are just manhandling these young wide receivers, so they can't even get open in one-on-one drills. So the quarterbacks are kind of at the mercy of these these wide receivers who can't get open. So you add that to it, and the fact that I'm sure he's used to being the guy that knows everything, and now he's got to ask for help on things because he doesn't know everything. He's only been here a couple months. So I really think it's got to be a great challenge for McKenzie Milton. But I think what everybody needs to remind themselves, and he probably needs to remind himself, is the season's 6 months away. I mean, he doesn't need to be where he needs to be on March 12th or 13th. He's got 6 months to get there mentally. And I think we're just going to have to watch this process. But the good thing is the leg, everybody was worried about the leg. I don't think that's a big problem. I think he said that right afterwards when we talked to him.
Hey, just real quick on that, one thing I want to point out, when you guys are sending me this stuff, so I'm kind of like, again, I'm not there, but during the one-on-one, which if you've ever seen a one-on-one, the receivers have a huge advantage. They have the whole field. There's no safeties to worry about. There's no pass rush. And to me, for the defensive backs getting the advantage of that, there was one series of one-on-ones that you guys sent me updates on. I think there was 4 out of 5 plays where there's a pass breakup on a one-on-one. That's just, I don't think I've ever even seen that before. So that goes to what you're talking about, the defensive backs. And I guess the question is, are the defensive backs really that improved? Because we sure did. I think we saw 4 pass breakups all of last season. So for me to have that, or is it just the receivers are so bad and can't get open?
I think it's a combination of. I think it's mostly the defense. The defensive backs are playing well. I mean, look, Jarvis Brownlee to me is really playing well. Brendan Gant. Remember late last season, it seemed like he was kind of coming on, and he's a safety, but it seemed like he was coming on. He had a great day today. He looked great in special teams and in regular defensive drills. But what the DBs are doing is they're playing so physically off the line of scrimmage that the receivers can't get any separation, and they can't fight through it. Now, some of the older receivers, Keyshawn Helton, Ontario, Pokey Wilson, those guys have been through it, and they're a little bit more physical, and they can get some separation. But then maybe the pass isn't there. But when those young receivers, they're just having a hard time even getting open. And so, I mean, there's no separation. And to your point, it's not usual. That you don't usually see that. I think it's a testament to how physically now they may be. There's no referees out there, so they may be legitimately holding, and it's just it's hey, you got to deal with it. It's like playing pickup basketball. But the receivers, this is going to be a good test for them to learn how to get off of jam coverage because they can't get open right now.
Any last thoughts before we sign off for the week, gentlemen? Ira.
Yeah, I think I'm curious. Again, I think you guys will be able to get out there hopefully next week, and so we'll see more. I think there's an availability next Thursday, and then one on the weekend or one the start of the next week. So we have several more chances to watch them in practice. They're going to get a few days off now. They're going to come back out Tuesday. I kind of wish we were there Tuesday, not because I feel like we have to be there every time, but because I'm curious to see how the offense responds. And I think we'll hear from Norvell on Tuesday how they do, because it was every position. If I ask you guys, what's the strength of the offense? Most people I think would say running back. I think those are the guys that we feel the most confident in based on their experience and what they've done. Jayshon Corbin, Lawrence Tofili. One quick note on him. I was watching the running backs just do some basic drills, and that guy is like lightning. It's not a news flash. I think we all know it, but it just hits you when you watch him. But that running back group, I think, is the group that they're going to have to lean on. And my guess, maybe on Tuesday, maybe they'll give them some opportunities to kind of come back like Big Brother and back up the rest of the offense, which had a tough time today.
Yeah, for me, I just like with you. I need to see something a little bit more. Look, the defense is going to dominate. That's completely normal in spring practice. I think I can remember Ira 1 year when the offense was way ahead of the defense, and I think that was 2009. And we remember what happened that season. That was horrific. So
there's a reason that defense never stopped. That defense still hasn't stopped anyone.
Yeah, so it's not a bad sign. Don't get upset about it. What you do want to see is progress, I think, specifically by the receivers, the offensive line, and the quarterbacks. The receivers, it's still concerning to me that they just were so bad last year, and I just don't know if there's that guy this year. You hear it's great that a couple of the true freshmen have flashed, but can you really rely on one of those guys to be the go-to guy this year? So to me, I just want to see some guys, 1 or 2 guys stepping up, showing a little bit more consistency, getting open, not dropping the ball.
And last thing, just to interrupt, because we haven't really talked a ton about the quarterbacks as a group. I just think it's difficult to judge them right now based on everything else that's going on. So people might see we put up some statistics from the 7-on-7 and the 1-on-1s and things like that. You're going to see a lot of incompletions, a lot of pass breakups. I mean, we made the point that the receivers are struggling, especially the younger ones. But it's just hard to even evaluate the quarterbacks right now. I do think Jordan looks like the best and most polished, ready in this offense right now. The other guys all show good signs, but then it's hard to evaluate because just the passing game just isn't on target right now.
Do stay connected to warchant.com. Again, Corey Clark's got his observations in a store that's up on the website. The promo code scrolling at the bottom of your screen, FSU Spring 2021. Hit the thumbs up maybe on the way out if you haven't done so already. Gentlemen, thanks for the time and the knowledge.
Thanks.
All right.